Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of NTI PodTalk. My name is Diane Kaler. I'm the director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. This platform, we talk to people in the NTI community, around the NTI community, about the NTI community. And we talk about things that are of interest to people in our community. And because so many of the people in our community are either current students or prospective students, many of those people are interested in learning about our instructors. So today we have on with us, I'm very happy to have one of our newest instructors, Greg Durocher, and he teaches our business course, Business Readiness and Coaching Skills. And so thank you very much, Greg, for being here. Pleased to have you here. So I want to set the stage here, and that is that our instructors here are qualified practitioners in the fields of holistic nutrition, with the exception of Greg, who is not doesn't come from a background of holistic nutrition, doesn't come from a background of holistic health in training and in his work. And that is purposeful for this course, for our business readiness and coaching skills course, because to teach business, I don't think it's required that you have a nutrition background or a holistic health background. In fact, I think it's much more important that you have a strong business and coaching background, which you do. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'd really like to weave into the discussion how, your sort of basic business knowledge and coaching knowledge can be implemented for nutrition therapists, because we definitely have to bridge that gap and get from business to a nutrition therapist being able to practice and generate revenue. So I want to be able to talk about that. But first, I'd really like to hear about your background, your educational background, your sort of work background, your history that you bring to your teaching, and why your teaching is so impactful because of your background. I would like people to hear what that is. So
cool. Yeah, happy to share. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate that. It's always nice to be able to connect with the audience a little bit and make that personal connection of like who we are. So thanks for the opportunity for that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go all the way back to the beginning. I come from a huge family. I'm the youngest of 8 kids. We actually grew up just outside of Boulder. And my parents were pretty far ahead of the curve on the importance of nutrition spectrum. And we've been educated, informed, living, with varying degrees of success, like most people, using food as nutrition and understanding the importance of the nutritional content of what we're eating and proportions and all that stuff. So I grew up with the perspective that nutrition is important.
Yeah.
So from that angle, I'm fully aligned with the mission of NTI and what all of you nutrition therapists are going to be doing in your role out in the community. People need you. Our country spends more on healthcare than any other country on the planet, and we're the sickest country on the planet. Yeah. So clearly there's a need for what you all are training to do and what the Institute trains people to do. So I'm fully aligned with your mission, and my mission is somebody who teaches or helps teach people how to become entrepreneurs, how to be business owners. I can't do what you do. Mm-hmm. So my role as a trainer, as a teacher, is to help you have a solid business foundation and business knowledge and the coaching skills. And we can talk about a little bit about that in a minute, but like I tell other students that I teach this business plan training to, is, you can write the most comprehensive, prettiest, most complete business plan around, but if you're too scared to go out and implement it and actually build the business that you planned, you might, it was a waste of time and energy. So being a business owner is not just knowing what to do. It's cultivating the confidence and knowledge and belief in your ability to do what you're going to do, to be a business owner. And by business owner, I think that's the other thing that is important to redefine for people, is as a nutrition therapist, what you're doing is you're exchanging your knowledge, your information for other people's money. And anytime that exchange is happening, you're in business, you're a business owner. But the difference is being a business owner involves everything outside of teaching people about nutrition. Right? You've got marketing, and you've got financials, and you've got all these other aspects of the business that have nothing to do with delivering the product or service that the business offers. And that's where, as a new business owner, as a new entrepreneur, that's where most of us need to grow, because we don't have the background and the training and the belief systems and the information that we need to be successful in that role. And that's how, so my first real, adult career was as a firefighter paramedic. And in that world, there's not a lot of room for entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
It's a pretty paramilitary organization, which was great. What that afforded me was, over a decade of time where I was working 10 days a month, 10 24-hour shifts a month, which gave a lot of time off, and some financial resources that I could go expand my education. So what I dove into was personal development and personal growth. First and foremost, like I think most people that get into these helping fields, is we get into it to work on ourselves first. And then once we experience the impact that it had in our lives, we want to share it with other people.
Yeah.
And was very much my path in the coaching realm, because I got into it to deal with my own junk, and then was fascinated with the impact it had on my life and what I was witnessing, the trainers that I was working with, the impact they were having on other people. Whether that's taking, two people from completely opposite outlooks on life, like literal historical and ideological enemies, and getting them to work together in a single conversation in a matter of, a couple of hours of asking the right kind of question and getting them to really understand what was motivating them in their belief system and what was really important to them. And then taking those two people and after this interaction, they go out and they start a nonprofit together to bring their two communities together. So the impact that you can have in that space is just, the ripples just keep going and going.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated with, how do they do that? Like, how did that conversation, what did the guy leading the conversation know about human behavior to be able to ask the right kinds of questions to get these individuals to shift in such a profound way? And that's then, I'm a pretty engineering minded kind of guy. So I really wanted to understand how it worked. So that led me to pursue a similar kind of training path, which led to, neurolinguistic programming training, also known as, or abbreviated as NLP, hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, different kinds of coaching techniques and strategies. So that was like, I dove really deep into that stuff and ended up with a master neurostrategist certification. That just means that's like the highest, not the highest level, but high level of training in understanding human neurology, like how does the brain work from a behavior perspective, not talking as a brain surgeon understands the brain, but like what is this process of thinking, and how do we as a coach facilitate change in our clients, because we're not the ones changing them.
That's right.
we're giving them options to consider that they will then choose a path for themselves. And you guys in your field are doing the exact same thing. You're taking somebody who doesn't like the result that they've been getting in their life, and they're looking for a new option. And your job, your role is to open up the realm of possibilities to them of different choices that they could make, and what those choices are likely to lead to in regards to their physical body. And I think it all involves a non-physical component, but in the realm of NTI, I think we're definitely focusing on the physical, so that the physical body has the resources and balance that it needs. And that's what I love about the holistic piece of it, is nobody is just what they eat or drink. What we think has massive impacts on the chemistry of our body. So without looking at the whole picture, and without with a nutrition therapist not having, they got to have the tools to at least start addressing both sides of the equation. So that's, I think when you and I first talked, and that was kind of what I wanted to, I got excited about the idea of being able to help the NTI graduates go out into the world with, there's always going to be more to learn. But I feel like with what I was able to bring to the table from a business development perspective and the coaching perspective, I think gives them a solid foundation to at least launch their practice from. So what qualifies me to teach the business side of things? Well, my wife and I have been building our own e-commerce business for a little over, almost 10 years now. And it's grown. It's been a big challenge. It's caused us to really have to stretch and grow as business owners. And the good news is we're still married.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, not just as business owners, but also as life partners, you have to stretch and grow a little.
Oh, you're not kidding. Because when you lose that, and this is one of the things we covered in class, is certainty, is the role of certainty that plays in how we think, and valuing certainty versus uncertainty or variety. And as an entrepreneur, you should probably get comfortable with uncertainty, right? Like, because you can't predict financially what your business is going to do. You can plan, and that's what we talk about in the class, is setting up the business plan. And the example I use that I think is most relevant is most people, if they're not already living in it, have a vision of what their dream house would look like. Like, how big is it? What do the rooms look like? How many stories is it? How's it finished? What does it look like? Where does it sit? But that doesn't mean that they go out and just buy a piece of property and rent a tractor and start digging a hole in the ground and order a cement truck and just start pouring cement willy-nilly and then building, banging boards together. Like, that's not how you go about building a house. So the first thing is you have to have the vision for what the house is going to look like. Then you sit down with a qualified architect and engineer, and they create a written profile, written example of what this building is going to look like when it's all done. And by the time, you get done with the architects and the engineers and the interior designers, you have a written, printed document that represents the final house that's going to be built. And you can take that plan and hand it to somebody else, and they can execute on the building of the house. And that's what I see a business plan is for a business. It's the opportunity to research, who are my customers? What is the real value that I'm going to deliver?
Yeah.
How am I going to articulate that? How am I going to talk to people about what I do in a concise, compelling way? What's the challenge that they're facing that I can help them overcome? And when you can start exploring that, and then, okay, well, what do I want to offer? Like, what is my product or my service? And how many clients do I need to pay my bills? To, and then separating out the personal bills from the business bills, and how do we do that? And so all of these pieces are the pieces of building a business that have nothing to do with actually working with a person across the table from you. So that's where I think, so anyway, my wife and I have been building our business for 10 years. Back in 2014, we were about 18 months into our business. And at the time we had business partners, and, the credit cards are maxed out. We need inventory. There's no more money in the business owners. So we're like, okay, I guess we're going to need an outside loan. Well, started exploring that on the internet and figured out that I was probably going to need a business plan. So I plugged into the local small business development center here in Denver, Colorado. And if you don't know, the Small Business Development Center is a subsidiary of the Small Business Administration at the federal level. So every state has a small business development center. And then likely the way it's structured is there'll be a number of small business development centers scattered throughout the state. Here in Colorado, we happen to have 15. So it's the Small Business Development Center is an organization that is kind of has a charter by the Small Business Administration to help small businesses get started and grow. So I was like, well, that's probably a good idea, to go talk to somebody about how do I do this? So I went in, I had a complimentary consultation with one of the consultants, and was pretty much directed that I needed to attend their 10-week business plan class. So I said, yes, ma'am. And I did. And apparently the business plan I wrote was very comprehensive and well laid out and well written, because I won a competition that was in the class, and then a state level one. But after all of that, the person who was teaching, facilitating the class, because of my coaching background, because of my trainer background, invited me to help facilitate the class. So starting in 2015, I have been facilitating the 10-week business plan writing curriculum at the Small Business Development Center here in Denver, Colorado. So we run it 3 times a year. So, 15, 18 times, 20 times that I've taught it to date. But more importantly is the number of people that have come through, that have been able to go through this exploratory process. Probably 300-400 people by now that have gone through the process. So it's a proven process, and I learned the process. So the process has been way precedes me. Now I do believe that I bring a certain secret ingredient to to the conversation with the coaching side of it. Because again, like I said, you can write the most perfect, most eloquent business plan, but if you don't actually have the courage and confidence and fortitude to go put it into action, you're never going to get the result.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things that is, I heard about the small business
SBDC, yeah.
Yeah, SBDC. I get lost on what the letters
a lot
mean.
of words.
SBDC. I had heard about the SBDC, and I was like, oh, I bet they would have a great person who could do what I want to do here at NTI, which is, our curriculum is comprehensive, really great training in holistic nutrition. We teach all the science, all the mechanisms of how nutrients work, and, all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. But there was always this kind of challenge of how do you turn that academic knowledge and that, expertise that our students develop about nutrition, how do you actually take that and then turn that into something where you can generate revenue, whether or not you're opening your own business or working for someone else, right? Because as you mentioned, if there's an exchange of money, that is being in business, but it could be that there's a third party that is being, an employer that the money is being exchanged with. But, anyway, my goal was just like, I need to find someone who's a business expert and a coaching expert who can make this transition, because I think potentially our students can feel challenged. And like you said from the very beginning, you need to develop the confidence to be able to say to yourself, I know I have the knowledge and the skills. Now, how am I going to, and what's it going to take for me to go out and actually use that and implement that? And so I reached out to the SBDC and I was like, is there anyone who would be interested? And I got your name and you and I connected, and I can't tell you how happy I am that we did make that connection, because through your guidance and your work on helping us, create the curriculum and teach the course, I really think that we have succeeded in my goal, and that is to give our students the confidence that they can actually go out and do this, and recognize their ability and their capacity to do that, and not feel like they're floundering after they graduate.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you feel that you've achieved the goal, and that goal is just a stepping stone. Because for both of us, the real goal is for the graduates of NTI to be successful in whatever they're doing when they leave, and make an impact.
That's right.
And if they're struggling with the mechanics and the mechanisms of trying to, which there will be effort put into growing a business. I'm not
Absolutely.
saying it's just going to build itself.
Yeah.
But if you feel lost and uncertain, that's a feedback loop that is self-defeating. It doesn't help.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about how what you think impacts your body, health wise. It also impacts your effort and your work that you do in
Absolutely.
making decisions and taking risks and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So the other thing I think that I really am grateful for this opportunity is that I'm on my own journey, and doing this with you all has been a great benefit to me as well. So it's pretty cool that it's working for everybody involved in the process, and I'm learning stuff, and I'm sure you and Chris are learning some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as long as, and that's another thing I talk about in business, is there is no, so the only way to fail in business is to quit. And if you're driven to start a business, from that point where you decide to do it, it's just a cycle of taking action and getting feedback, learning something, and taking new actions. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. And even for those NTI grads who are going to go work in somebody else's business, that's what that business owner is going through. Or that, you know, that store manager, or even you as an employee working with individual clients. Like that's a cycle that just permeates all of our experience of life. Is there's action and there's feedback, and then there's learning and new actions. And that's just a never-ending cycle. And so even what I think this class gives to those people who are going to choose to go work in somebody else's business, with what you're going to get out of the BRCS class, is an appreciation, for one thing, of what it actually takes to build and grow and run a business, which will make you a more valuable, more empathetic, and a better employee. And I think any business owner would appreciate somebody who appreciates what it takes to give them that paycheck, to provide that paycheck. You know, they don't just grow on trees. And you know, if you can approach your position as an employee in that business with an understanding and appreciation for what the business owner has on the line, you will be a better employee. You will be a more valuable employee. And I believe that is a good energy to be working in somebody else's business from, whether it's your own or somebody else's.
I totally agree. I love that. Yeah, really important. You know, one of our core values here at NTI is that we, you know, is making a difference, making a difference in the world, making a difference in people's lives. And, you know, I don't expect that NTI is going to make a difference in every single person's life outside. The person who's going to be making the difference is our graduates, right? And so the difference that we make is for our graduates. Our graduates go out and make a difference in other people's lives. And I really believe that this course gives them the confidence and the ability and the resources and sort of the psychological wherewithal to go out and take the risk of putting yourself out there to make that difference. Because, you know, as you said, it is a risk. Everything you do, every action that you take based on not knowing what the exact outcome is going to be. But yeah, so thank you for all of that, because that just reinforces my my pleasure that you're here as an instructor, and that our students get to participate in a course that I think is going to bring them real value to build on their academic knowledge that they're getting in the rest of our courses. So that's great. So you started off talking about how you were raised with, you know, some good solid nutritional values. So what are your favorite foods to eat?
Oh, didn't know that question was coming.
Yeah, I'm coming out of left field here. Like, do you have something that, you know, shifting gears here, this is a nutrition school. People like to hear what other people eat. So do you have like things that you prioritize? Like, I want to make sure I eat this regularly, or, you know, include this in my diet, my children's diet, because I recognize the nutritional value and I know it brings me benefit. It doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a category, or, I mean, just anything to kind of support the nutrition message that we have here. Yeah.
Well, one, I love gardening. And I have put a lot of time and energy into learning to garden, and not only garden, but also, the complete cycle of gardening, and then harvesting not only the fruit of that season, but then harvesting the seeds and creating the next year's crop from this year's crop. And I think that's just a really cool skill set to have that, I don't think a lot of people, even those who garden, might not take it that far.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. Have gardened for, 25 years, but I do not save my seeds. I don't. So
And for me, it's just really cool. Like when I'm planting next year's crop from this year's, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I did it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Which, 10 minutes ago, I was harvesting lettuce seed from this year's lettuce crop.
Right.
I was raised on a kind of a New Mexico Mexican diet. My mom is from New Mexico, so I love the chilies, that kind of the New Mexican style of food, which for me is good because I do have some gluten issues. So I eat quite a bit of corn, which probably has its own challenges, but so far my body seems to be okay with it. But definitely, I think the living food is always important. Smoothies with good high quality protein are good for me. Right now I'm doing more of a plant-based protein as opposed to a whey. But yeah, just trying to get all the good greens and fibers and vegetables and stuff like that. Even when I was a kid, I didn't eat a lot of meat. I've never really craved meat, but when we do eat it, we again invest in high quality grass-fed, just because it has to be. It makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, well, yes, it makes a difference not only in health but in the environment. Social justice, all those kinds
There's
of
a lot
things.
of layers. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that's so important. I'm sure your kids, when they see food that was growing in the backyard on their table, they have a real strong sense of where food comes from that so many kids today do not understand.
Yep.
So that's always a benefit. I know that that's something that was important to me in the raising of our child as well. Because I grew up that way. I grew up in my grandmother's garden, grazing and eating food out of the garden. And I just have always known where food comes from.
Yep.
Because I've seen it, and my grandparents had a farm. So
oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I even went for a few years, went and took the delved into beekeeping, took the leap into being a beekeeper.
Yeah.
So I still have all the equipment. I haven't had any bees for the last 2 summers, but that was fun. Very educational experience for sure.
Yeah.
Get that
That's
life
something
cycle.
we would like to get into at our house someday when we have time. That's definitely something we'd like
well,
to
and that's what I always say to people that asked about it was, well, I think bees are the best pet because they actually give you something. They're low maintenance, and you get something out of it. They're not just you're not just feeding them all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And I did teach my kids to pet bees. Out on a flower, you can totally just pet a bee. They're not aggressive in that. Like if you pinched it, yes, they'll sting you. If they get stuck in your hair and they feel threatened, they'll sting. But just a bee on a flower, there's no risk there. It's pretty crazy.
I didn't know that.
My kids would freak out the other teachers and the kids at school when they go up to the flowers and pet the bees.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. I've never heard of that before. That's so cool. Nice.
But anyway, so yeah, I do believe in knowing where your food comes from. I'd love to have chicken someday, but I don't. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Greg. This has really been a fantastic time spent. I always enjoy talking to you. I always learn something new. I just learned about petting bees. So it's been great. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate that you are part of the NTI community as an instructor. And I think you bring a lot of value and a lot of wisdom to our students, and I'm sure they appreciate it as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'll see you in class to all the
All right.
students.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.